Welcome to the Art of Conscious Love Summit 2017. I'm your host, Kuthoomi. I'm passionate and excited to help you develop the skills and awareness needed to have more passion, deep connection, and authentic love in your relationships. Today, I'm excited to welcome Caroline Andrews. Caroline is a women healing facilitator with over 15 years dedicated to studies to spirituality, relationships, yoga, and personal development, and have found the keys to pleasure, health, and relationships, especially for women over 40. Inspired by her real life issues with relationships and addictions, she has constantly sought healing and found peace, clarity, and answers in the most unlikely of places. She spends her life now teaching, instructing, and coaching women to being fully empowered, taking full ownership of their lives, creating amazing relationships with themselves and others, and using pleasure to power all aspects of who they are and what they want. Hi, Caroline. Welcome to the summit. How are you today?
Fine, thank you.
Great. So moving into the questions, Caroline, would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself, your experience into coming into this work?
Sure, thank you, Kuthoomi. I have been on the path of spiritual and personal growth for probably the last 15 to 20 years. I personally had gone through 2 failed marriages and wanting to look at why I wasn't able to have a successful relationship and really understand what it takes to heal myself so that I could be fully present moving forward in a future relationship. And through that process, I did many different types of healing modalities, yoga, meditation, a lot of spiritual awareness and truths that I found. And through all of my learnings, I also became a Reiki master, which is a hands-on way of healing yourself, that I found for me, just embracing, learning about my wounding, my inner child woundingness, and really understanding how I was showing up for the other person, whether I was being triggered or not fully present or conscious of my wounding. Many years of working on that and learning how to be fully present and conscious with the other human being. I therefore saw the importance of teaching other people that were seeking, why can't I have a healthy relationship? What's wrong with me? Why do I, pick the wrong person every time? So a lot of different modalities. I also did a lot of sexual healing. In my past, I had a lot of shame and guilt from my upbringing, and had to learn how to deal with that and really, allow that to be healed as well. Yeah.
Great, thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Caroline, I'm aware you work mostly, your work is mostly with the women community. I'm wondering if there is openness to working with men and the LGBTQ community as well.
Yes, and thank you for asking me. I do focus primarily on women, but I have worked with men too, and also couples. So I absolutely know how important it is for the masculine to be healed, and that's a huge part of what we need to do. So yes, very much open to working with men too.
Great, fantastic.
Yes.
Caroline, so what is a conscious relationship?
So to me, a conscious relationship is a relationship where the couple actually puts their personal growth as a priority over the relationship. So they both are committed to growing, again, on a personal level. Mm-hmm. And the relationship isn't, if it doesn't work out, they still are okay because they know their personal growth is the key to having a conscious relationship. And that's really hard to do for a lot of people, right? Yeah. And the other thing I like to say is each person in the relationship is committed to owning their, stuff, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So you're willing to look at your wounds and figure out why you're continuing to be triggered by the other human beings. So look at the dysfunctional patterns and really start to heal them. Mm-hmm. The other thing is all feelings are welcome, and there's no internal process that's condemned. So that means you're completely free to express yourself fully and authentically. And the other person holding that space, even though they're probably going to be triggered by what you're saying, but you're able to completely be rigorously honest with the other human being. Mm-hmm. That's also very hard to do. And the last thing is the relationship is a place to practice love. So we're humans, right? We're never going to get it perfect, but we're willing to learn how to practice love. That means, acceptance, being present with each other, practicing forgiveness, stretching your heart into vulnerable territories. Again, we're human, we're just aspiring to have this unconditional love. Yeah.
Caroline, you mentioned the wounds and also the inner child work. Can you talk more about it?
Yes, Kuthoomi, I found that the inner child work for me personally was a huge aspect of my own healing. And in order to do that, I had to form a relationship with what I say my inner children, which is literally speaking to that part of me on a daily basis, checking in when my feelings are being triggered or I don't feel comfortable in my body, because it's typically a message that she's trying to tell me. Like, hey, you know what? You're working too much. Get out and play. I'm not happy with this constant, work. So it's something that I've learned how to develop. And there's a really cool technique that you can do to dialogue with your inner child by literally using your non-dominant hand in journaling and asking the inner child, what do you need? And then you write back with your non-dominant hand as the inner child comes to tell you. That's a really cool process that I've learned that's very helpful when you're healing the inner child.
So what is, because a lot of times people don't understand what is actually the inner child, what it's, or how does it present, or what it's the whole thing about the inner child.
Yeah. So the theory with that is that, in our childhood, especially up to age 7, when we're not really able to communicate exactly what we need, and we're shamed, or we're hurt, or we're rejected, or we're abandoned in some way, the subconscious is what tells that part of the child, hey, I'm not safe. This doesn't feel good. And those woundings, which are an emotional and energetic charge, stay on our subconscious. So as we become adults and we're triggered by that same uncomfortable emotion or feeling, we actually sometimes react as if we're an inner child and not an adult, until we understand those wounds and integrate them into ourselves as, whole beings.
Gotcha. So you start a relationship with this inner child to be able to heal that.
Yes.
Okay. Right.
Absolutely.
Great. Fantastic. What are some of them? You mentioned some already, but can you go a little deeper into the woundings? Like, what are some of the most common woundings that we have from childhood?
Yeah. Well, we all have, a lot of them is feeling that you're not enough, and feeling a lot of them have scarcity because, the parents had some issues around lack, rejection, huge one, abandonment. In some way, we don't feel like, our needs were met. So we're abandoned. We don't feel heard. We don't feel seen by our partner. So all of those are really typical that a lot of us as human beings have, right? It's just some of us have them to a less, a more serious degree, again, based on what our childhood was like. Yeah.
How do you start healing these wounds?
How do you start healing these wounds? Well, first you have to become aware of them, right? I mean, I don't even want to tell you how long I was completely unaware of the wounds and continue to act out, which is either, numbing or avoiding them. So once you become aware of them, then the next step is learning how to communicate with your partner or whomever you are in your life to where you feel heard. So there's different ways of when you communicate, mirroring each other, so you feel validated, which a lot of times we never felt validated. So just learning how to listen and hear that person and repeat to them, that actually tells the brain, when this person is looking into your eyes, that you feel heard now. And that's part of the inner child wounding, that it needs to feel healed. So there's, we're wounded in relationships, and we also can heal in relationships if we're able to allow each other to do that. Yeah.
How do you, a lot of times when we have so much woundings and, we haven't really worked with them, or even if we have worked with them, we have developed a little very hypersensitivity to things and, relationships. Somehow we become empaths, right? how do we deal when we are empaths, or when somebody else it's an empath and we just don't know what to do because their sensitivity is so present that anything gets triggered?
Yeah.
What do we do?
Thank you. I know you're an empath, so am I. So I've really had to learn how to deal with life on life's terms. And one of the things I do, Kuthoomi, is I literally, when I get up in the morning, I do a meditation and I do white light to actually protect my auric field, because as empaths, we feel everything and all other people's feelings as well. So we have to take care of ourselves first so that we don't take on that energetic into our auric field. So grounding yourself, white light, whatever it is for your own self to be safe is number one for me. And then once you have that awareness, I literally have to be careful. Like I literally watch no television. I cannot let that consciousness come into me because I'll take it on and I won't even be able to function. So I'm very selective on what comes into my energy field, meaning even, loud music. So once you really understand, and we all have it to a different degree, by the way, highly sensitive people are empaths. Some are more sensitive than others, but at least becoming aware of because your central nervous system is so intensified, we can't handle what a lot of normal people can. And I literally cannot be in really loud places. I won't feel good. My heart will start racing. It's just my body can't take on that amount of, what do you want to get? Just intensity coming into my central nervous system. So learning how to take care of yourself first and letting people know that you're in relationship with, that you are an empath. Mm-hmm. So they have that understanding right away. You're more sensitive to whatever's happening in your world is, to me, the best thing you can do to help yourself survive in a world where we're so sensitive. Mm-hmm. And eating healthy, so you have to look at what you eat. I mean, that's huge too. I can't do any stimulants. Anything that would, cause, stimulants are terrible for me. No coffee. So, and just eating healthy too. Yeah.
Great. One of, in my experience, one of the strategies that we come up whenever we're so sensitive, it's control. We want to control the external world so we can feel good. Can you talk more about it? How is that strategy coming up for you, in your experience and the people that you work with?
Yeah. Well, yes, control can get the best of us. And what I find, Kuthoomi, what really helps me, especially being sensitive, or I find myself in a moment where I feel, quote, out of control, I'll just do what I call conscious breathing. Mm-hmm. And if you're not familiar with that, that's inhaling and exhaling without the pause. So it literally gets you into the present moment and gets you out of your story and out of the drama or trauma or trigger that you're experiencing. Even if you do that for 1 minute, it will ground you into the present moment and have you be, much more aware.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Caroline.
Mm-hmm.
I remember reading something on your website, and you mentioned about the keys to, that you have found the keys for pleasure, health, and relationships. What would be some of those keys?
Some of the keys. Well, my philosophy is to live, a more pleasure-filled life. So how do we experience pleasure? Through our senses. People think, sexual pleasure. I'm just talking about sensual, everyday pleasures. I help women get back into noticing, like a beautiful rose, or a warm bath, or the smile on someone's face, or the eating chocolate and really enjoying all of the senses, like smelling it and then slowly eating it and letting it melt into your mouth. Because when a woman is in her pleasure, she's in her highest power. We're naturally pleasure-filled women. And when we get away from that, we become more disenfranchised, disapproval of ourselves. We're just not, that's our natural state. And so I really help people get back to enjoying pleasure, just simple, daily pleasures. And then they can feel more in their power, and they're radiant, and they're able to, attract what they desire when you're in your pleasure. So
working with pleasure.
Yes, working with pleasure is key. And pleasure also, is part of self-care.
Totally.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that, because a lot of times we forget about ourselves. You know, when we move into a relationship, we become so much the other person and we forget about ourselves. What are some of the things that, Caroline, you can mention that people can start doing it to regaining, like self-confidence and self-trust and like becoming more into their bodies? You mentioned a few things. Can you mention some other things?
Yeah. So again, and I can't stress self-care enough. And that's literally part of falling, back in love with yourself, because I had to learn how to love myself.
Mm-hmm.
I was completely, I would say, detached from my body. And of course, being in the divine feminine, we embody the body, right? So just being in the present moment in your body, I have to teach women how to do that first. Then we can look at, how do we do self-care? Do you meditate, or do you exercise? Do you dance? Do you play? Are you artistic? Do you create? What is it that brings you the greatest joy? Because once you're in love with you, then you're able to go out, right, and love another. But if there's any lack or codependency or dysfunctional addictions, there's no way you can be fully present for another human being. So really back to basics, self-care, self-love. And, that takes time to develop those rituals and those, practices. But it's so necessary to be fully, loving yourself first before anyone can love you, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
What are some, when you're talking about women and all these, all these qualities that you develop as you're working on yourself, whether as a woman or as a man, but I'm wondering more as a woman, and around the work with so many women that you have done, what are some of the qualities of an empowered woman? What is an empowered woman? What is an awakened woman?
Yeah. Yeah. An empowered, awakened woman is fully in her pleasure, attracts what she desires. She rises above. She lives turned on a daily basis. She chooses beauty. She elevates herself. She uses pleasure as her compass, and she flirts as a spiritual practice, and she never gives up on her desire. So all of these things keep, the woman in her, and again, those can be also men too. If you think about a lot of those, that's where she radiates, and she comes from that place where everyone wants to be in her presence, because she is in the divine feminine.
Yeah. Have you ever found that sometimes when women are so empowered, actually men get intimidated?
Yes.
That
They
has happened to
do.
me a lot.
Right. Yeah. So they have to remember, to stay in that feminine, which is allowing, receiving, and flow, and not overpower, right, the men. Yeah. Because men want us to be more in our feminine, right?
Totally.
So yes, you don't want to go too far into the power.
I'm happy you mentioned that, because I've seen that happening a lot. Women who are moving into empowerment sometimes moves a little bit too much, and then we get like men that push down.
Right.
It takes a lot of effort to really meet somebody at that level. So I'm
You're
glad
right.
you mentioned that. Yeah, thank you. How about an empowerment, and a man who is able to feel emotionally mature? What would be some
Yeah.
characteristics?
So in other words, for a man, to me, a conscious man is coming, more from his heart space than his head. So that's what, to me, the greatest journey for men, because they've been so, mental, is to really drop into their heart and start to follow what am I feeling in this part of my body, and how can I show up for a woman, again, coming from, because women, we kind of do it a little more naturally than men, because we're nurturers by birth. They really have to learn how to nurture and love themselves wholly too. And again, for that to be possible, they have to do the same type of self-care I was talking about for women, and find what brings them joy, what makes them feel good. And a lot of conscious men that I know, they eat really healthy. They get exercise that they love, that they, makes their bodies feel good. They're more connected to their emotions. in their feelings, which, as we know, most men hate hearing that word when women ask, how are you feeling? So they really are willing to exploit. They're willing to be vulnerable. That is huge. That's such a turn on for women, for men to actually be vulnerable and honest and real with their emotions. Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Caroline. What is vulnerability in your experience? That's such a big,
isn't it?
Thing for many people.
Right. And it's scary too for women too. So to me, vulnerability is a willingness to share part of your deepest self, maybe your secrets, maybe your dark side, that you feel like if you were to share this, people wouldn't want to be with you or love you. And really allowing those, beliefs to lay aside so that you can be yourself. And again, that you have to create a safe environment for the man to want to feel vulnerable. So if you're not vulnerable and you're not being authentic, how can he? Or if he feels like he's going to be judged or shamed or made wrong, no way, right? Exactly. So the woman has to create that space for the man to feel safe to be vulnerable like that. But it's a beautiful thing to witness when they do. And to me, that's more of what a conscious man, remember, he's willing to look at his stuff and share his feelings and personal growth, number one. It's huge.
What would be some of the ways that a woman can, you said the woman needs to create a safe environment so that finally somehow the men will open up. What does that mean, creating a safe environment?
Yeah, safe environment. Well, to me, that she's fully present with the man. So you actually set up the environment where you're both sitting at the same level. So you're both eye to eye. So not one person is taller than the other. And you maybe do a few conscious breaths. So you're completely present for him, undivided attention, and you're not going to interrupt or correct or fix. He's going to be able to speak as long as he needs to, based on whatever it is he needs to share. And there's no fixing or judging or, they just get to speak and you listen and thank them for being open and honest to whatever they want to share. And to me, that's how the man can feel safe.
So that's beautiful. My experience is usually that any form of pressure will shut men down.
Yes. Yes.
So as you said, if there's any judgment or any telling or any correcting or any teaching.
Yep. Done.
Totally the opposite of what actually you want to achieve.
Exactly. Yeah. And remember what I was saying about the mirroring and validating. If it's something that he needs to hear back to make sure that you heard him, you mirror it back. You set that up ahead of time. But if he just needs to be heard, absolutely, you hear them and you thank them for being willing to be vulnerable, and no fixing or judging, nothing, no feedback. He just has to feel safe.
Great. What are some of the holdbacks for men? Like they don't open up so easily. I mean, one you mentioned is conditioning, but can you explain more about it?
Yeah. Well, again, based on what they've experienced up until that time in their life, whatever their childhood woundings are, that's what they may be afraid of. For instance, the man that I'm currently in a relationship with, he grew up in a family where no one showed their feelings. So the first time his mother got angry when he was 10, he thought she was dying. I mean, he was so caught off because he'd never seen any type of emotion. So, here he is X amount of years later, still kind of disconnected from his emotions. Because, when he was conditioned so long to not feel, that's what you think is normal, right? So getting him able to tap into, number one, what is the emotion, and feeling safe to express it. To me, that's been, his greatest growth and challenge. And women, we need to feel that you know what emotion you're experiencing, right? Because we're a little more on the emotional side of things. But so, yeah, I think that men may, and again, think how you're conditioned growing up. Men don't cry, you can't be human. And yes, you should cry. That's a normal state of being human. So guys have it way worse than women as far as allowing themselves to share who they are. And what I would call being fully self-expressed. So how you're feeling internally is being expressed externally, and no filtering or holding back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what we aspire to.
Totally. Can you talk about some communication tips? I mean, you mentioned these being able to get in touch with the feelings, but now how do we communicate them in a healthy way?
In a healthy way. Well, I touched on that a little bit, in that you agree to create the space so that your partner feels like they can share something and they're not going to be shamed or judged or made wrong. That's a lot easier said than done, especially if there's a conflict. But until someone is going to feel safe to really share and get vulnerable, they're not going to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the main things with couples that I work with. The men especially, they're so conditioned because they know that she's going to make them wrong the minute they, breaking those patterns of habitual dysfunction takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And people, that it's baby steps, just learning how to mirror each other, right? And not because you want to mirror, then you want to fix them. You can't do that. You have to just develop a habit of healthy communication first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You mentioned, my question was more in regard, I mean, you already mentioned creating the environment.
Yeah.
Coming in this kind of like the example of the woman, but like, for instance, me opening up as a man.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you have any tips in the sense of like, how do I share my feelings without, in a healthy way? A lot of times, when men open up and share, sometimes they actually unconsciously attack.
Right.
So also, if you can talk more about that awareness of how to share properly your feelings without really, blaming or pointing fingers.
Yeah. Well, to me, again, that awareness of knowing is you're responsible for your own stuff, right? And nothing exists outside of self. So when you really have that understanding as a man or, as a woman, coming from that space, you're going to have more an awareness, a conscious awareness of what you're going to share. So anytime, there's blame, you're looking outside of yourself to fix only what you can fix inside yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So when people really understand that, like whenever you're triggered, those triggers are messengers. They're just messages for us to look at what needs to be healed inside us, not the person delivering it. It's a message. It's something in you that needs to be healed, and it's typically a part of an emotional integrative energy that needs to be healed from your subconscious, or your emotional body. I don't know if that helps you, but
yeah. That was
continuing to get more aware and healing what's inside you first.
Caroline, a lot of times before even you can open up and start sharing, we experience fear and pain.
Yeah.
What do we do with it? How do we deal with those two emotions?
The fear and the pain. Well, first of all, we're willing to feel it.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many times in my unconscious way of being in my younger years, I used things externally because I didn't want to feel. I share that I had addictions, and that's just, going external outside yourself. So once I was really willing to feel, which, hurts sometimes, it's awful. But what I also noticed, it's more the resistance. If I'm resisting it, I make it even worse. So to fully allow myself to feel the fear, the anger, let my body move, scream, cry, whatever I need to do to move the emotion out of my body is what's healing. Because it's energy stuck in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And just letting yourself feel that emotion, to me, you got to feel it to heal it. I'm sure you've heard that. And not make yourself wrong. Like we've made ourselves wrong for being angry. Anger is a normal human emotion. It's okay to be angry. It's just, you don't want to take it out on somebody else, but there's healthy ways to be angry. And that's another, I do a lot of somatic body work with my clients. It's not just all talk. I know that we have stored emotions in our bodies that need to be released.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So letting yourself feel it.
Totally. Thank you for mentioning that. A lot of times it's good to send the message out to say that it's not wrong.
Yes.
Or to be afraid or to feel pain, you know?
Yep. And I ran from pain for many years. So I get to make up for all that because it stays in your body until you allow yourself to heal it, feel it. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So Caroline, I know your passion is working with women. So can you tell us more about this work?
Yeah, thank you, Kuthoomi. So what I'm finding and what I'm so passionate about this is women, the modern woman today has fallen into like these 4 categories I call the 4 Ds, because she's either experienced shame or humiliation or job loss or divorce or rape or can't find a partner or can't have a baby, whatever. And the first one is disenfranchisement, which means I still don't get it. I don't fit in. I'm an outcast. Or disapproval. I disapprove of myself, everyone, and everything. Or devastation. I have suffered devastating loss and I can't get over it. Depression. I'm so despondent and dejected, I can't even engage. Yeah, so these 4 Ds are what take women down or take them out. And men too. I mean, all of those could, men could fall into that category. So what I want to do is help them really get back into their radiance and their joy through pleasure. Because that's how women manifest. That's what we're made to do, is to receive and enjoy pleasure. So that's when she's radiating. And again, it's baby steps, starting with everything I talked about with the self-care, self-love, slowly getting into connecting with her second chakra, because we've closed that energy, area down. I don't know if we haven't talked about chakras, but that's, the creativity, the sexuality center, which so many women are disconnected. And that's really real power is in that area of healing.
Caroline, you hold women's circles.
Yes.
Can you talk about the importance of community, in this case, the women community?
Yes, absolutely. So women have been gathering for eons and coming together in tribes to support each other. And we completely got away from that, these last 2,000 years because of our patriarchal society. And we became like men. We're competitive and jealous and not seeing the beauty and the light in our sisters, which is not uplifting. So these circles are reminding women that your tribe is your support, and to see each of our sisters in their light, in their beauty, and not competing, but collaborating with them to bring them, into their higher selves. So there's such beautiful transformational experiences. These women really start to feel the love and support from their sisters, which is what gives them the power to go out and radiate and be their light in the world. Men need them too, though.
Totally.
Yeah.
So you're basically creating a safety environment for women to like empower themselves.
Yes, totally empower themselves. And we go over all the self-love, self-care, self-expression, self-forgiveness, and then we go into collaboration, healing the mother wound, healing the father wound, our children, our planet, our tribe. Yeah, it's creating like divine feminine leadership.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, there's not many groups out there for men, and that's something that I'm passionate about, to start leading and creating a men group so that we can also find that same safety spot where we can open up and, empower ourselves. So thank you, because I think it's both ways, we need to work on each side,
Yeah. And I think I've heard of it's called the Man Project. Are you familiar with that?
I've heard about it, not so familiar with it though.
Yeah, so check that out. I think that's a really good one for men to build that bonding with each other again. They do like weekend retreats.
Great, fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome, Caroline. Thank you. We're coming to an end, so I'd like you to introduce your gift to our audience.
Yes. Well, since I'm so much into pleasure, I have created a really cool gift. It's a free gift. It's a pleasure factor quiz. So I want you to go take my quiz, and it's going to tell you where you are on your scale of pleasure and what can be done if you're not experiencing pleasure on a daily basis. So it's a fun quiz. It's a little different than a PDF, but it's really going to help the woman see where she is. and where she can go from there.
Mm-hmm. Is this
Yes.
something that also could be done by men, or is more
Men too.
men
Men
too?
can do it too. Yeah, it's definitely, it's catered towards women, but men can, yeah, so they can see where they are on the pleasure scale as well.
Great, fantastic,
Yeah.
fantastic. And just to end, Caroline, can you mention briefly again, repeat the importance of pleasure? I think that was a key point, that we forget.
Yes. So pleasure is what a woman needs to fully be an awakened divine being. And it's what's lacking for most women in their lives. And remember those 4Ds that I talked about? They're somewhere in one of those 4Ds completely not radiating the beauty that they are. So just bring them back to that core basics of get in your pleasure. It's when you're in your highest power.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Yes.
Caroline, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Had so much fun listening to you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm so grateful that you're doing this summit. And I wish you the best in all your art of conscious living and loving.
Thank
Yes.
you. Appreciate it.
Yes. All right.
Friends, tomorrow, 2 more amazing interviews coming up, so check them out. And don't forget to click the link below to get Caroline's Pleasure Factor quiz. You don't want to miss this.